Hi, I'm Will.
And I'm Helen.
And we're both graduate students at UCI in Logic and Philosophy of Science. So, Helen, why did you pick UCI?
I chose UCI because I wanted to research in philosophy of physics, and there's a lot of faculty here that specialize in philosophy of physics. So there's 3 faculty, and we offer a lot of courses, and so I wanted to get a little bit of coursework underneath my belt before I turned to my own research. What about you, Will?
So for me it's very similar, except for instead of philosophy of physics, I'm interested in mathematical and philosophical logic, and particularly because I was picking between the UK and the US, being able to get in that extra bit of coursework before I started working on my dissertation was really appealing.
Yeah, I think that's a big reason why people choose UCI Logic and Philosophy of Science, is because they really want that specialized program.
Right, and we're in philosophy of physics, stuff related to logic and mathematics and game theory. We're really one of the leading institutions in the US, if not the world. So, how has COVID affected you as a graduate student?
So fortunately, I was mostly out of coursework, and so my coursework itself wasn't affected as much. My own research is pretty flexible, so I have been able to do it pretty easily from home. But it does mean that I haven't seen my friends in the program as much, so we've changed some of our habits, like we meet online in the mornings to check in every day, and we have a little bit more online communication instead of the in-person. How about you?
Right, so similarly, I was outside of coursework, which means that I didn't miss out on kind of in-class interactions. I've also been meeting one of my advisors online already, and so it wasn't that big a shift to suddenly see both of them online. But yeah, as you said, even though we're not seeing much of each other, luckily in LPS we have a reasonably strong community, and so we have actually been seeing a reasonable amount of each other through the screen, as it were.
So, well, tell me a little bit about your research.
So I'm interested in why it is that we kind of have logical knowledge. So if we think some things are true, not because of how the world is, but they just follow by logic, then how can you explain that? And so I look at a particular answer to that says actually they just follow from the definitions of words like and or. And my work's been talking about which logic would be true if that story is true. How about you? What about your research?
I have 2 main areas that I'm interested in. So one is in this combination of philosophy and astrophysics, and it deals with epistemology in that field. So how is it that astrophysicists come to learn things about the universe? And more specifically, how do they use big astrophysics codes? How reliable are they? Where do they get that reliability, etc.? The other side of things that I'm interested in and pursuing for my dissertation itself is in the foundation of space-time theories. And so what is it that we expect our space-time theories to do, to explain? How do they work? How do all the components fit together?
Pretty cool stuff.
Thanks.
So how would you describe the life of a graduate student here at UCI?
I think it really depends on what stage you're in. So if you're in the early stages, life as a grad student involves a lot more coursework, and you're taking a full load of courses, you're TAing. As you progress, that coursework sort of falls off and you start pursuing your own research more. You had been doing it before, but now it's sort of more central. And you begin teaching your own courses as well.
Right.
That's the overall.
We at least have 3 major milestones, right? We have our portfolio, our prospectus, and then our dissertation defense at the end. And in the beginning, when you're doing all that coursework and you have portfolio to do, it can feel like a complete whirlwind and you're just moving from one thing to another. But once that's over and you're in the stage we're in, and you get to kind of sit down and just concentrate on the problem that's your dissertation problem, things kind of fall more into place. It's kind of less stressful, you're less rushed, you're balancing less things all at the same time.
your scope narrows a lot.
Yes.
So
And
you were
you- and-
pursuing 3 different projects, and now you're really just narrowing it.
Yeah, just focusing on one thing.
So what's mentoring like in our department, Will?
So I think it really depends on who your advisor is, and everyone has like an individual style. But one thing that is common is that during the beginning of your program, one or more faculty members will work with you on a specific paper. That can mean different things to different faculty members, but it generally at least involves talking to them about the project, getting them to sign off on it, then reading drafts and giving you feedback. And if you've come straight out of undergrad, that feedback can be slightly unusual because normally, right, you get the feedback at the end of the course and you never look at the paper again, but now you have to learn to respond to that feedback. And then as you get later on into the program, it really, I think, depends on who your advisor is. So my advisors are quite hands-on, and they read my work, and they send me papers they think would be interesting and stuff like this. I know some people have a much more hands-off approach. How about you?
Same deal for me too. I think it will depend on your advisor. And my advisor, even amongst his students, is pretty flexible in how he advises us. I think, though, another common theme that I've noticed is a lot of our groups are doing research group meetings now, and so the Philosophy of Physics group does this, and I think the Formal Epistemology group has these sort of research group meetings. So grant-related sometimes, but sometimes just for their research.
Yeah, and in fact, over on my side of the department, we have it was stopped by COVID, but we had an ongoing meeting where we would read work in formal semantics, so the kind of thing that you might do in a linguistics PhD, but instead we had someone from the linguistics department, Kai Weimar from our department, and a bunch of graduate students, and we were kind of working through material that was kind of relevant to that portion of the department as a group. So, what's unique about our department?
What's unique? Well, we are a very specialized department to begin with. And we're in the social sciences school, which is pretty strange for a philosophy program.
We have another philosophy department, so that means there's a whole bunch of other graduate students who do pretty different topics but are still philosophy students, and we can interact with them too.
Sometimes take their courses.
Take their courses, or they might take courses over here. You also end up TAing in subjects that I would have never expected to TA in. So I've TA'd for linguistics and psychology because we're in the social sciences, and so the kind of subjects that you might be assigned a TA for are not humanities subjects, they are social sciences subjects.
In fact, I TA'd psychology as well.
Yeah.
Another thing that's unique, especially if you are interested in teaching, is that we're guaranteed to teach at least one course of our own, and so you can be instructor of record for at least one course.
And I've taught 2 courses, and I'm teaching again in fall, so...
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. What do you plan on doing when you leave here, Will?
So I'm actually on the job market. This is a very relevant question for me. So I'm applying for postdocs and faculty positions in philosophy, and I'm going to apply for maybe 1 or 2 that might be in computer science, just because of where my material is kind of interdisciplinary and meets that borderline, unlike, say, something like philosophy and physics, where there's often like a pretty strong border. There is a bit of flexibility there. But, I mean, other than that, I think the program probably makes you, puts you in a much better position for non-academic jobs than most other philosophy PhD programs would, because we have so much formal material that we work on. I think everyone here has had training in formal methods. Now, different places, but I feel like that kind of sets us up. How about you?
Yeah, I'll just add that often it's also interdisciplinary work that we're doing to begin with, so that helps.
Yeah.
I still have a couple years, but I'm thinking of applying to teaching jobs mostly.
And you got to be you're a teaching fellow?
I am. I'm a pedagogical fellow, and so we get specialized training in pedagogy, and we get to run the TA introduction to UCI and teach them how to be great TAs. That's coming up
Currently online due to COVID.
currently online. Both the teaching and their TAing will both be online.